As the best-selling author of Drive, To Sell is Human, and other award-winning books, Daniel Pink approaches a different scientific puzzle in his newest book, When? The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing. In this book, Pink dives deeply into the importance of timing and how it impacts everything in our lives, from our creativity to whether we land a profitable business deal. By digging into the psychology, the biology, and the economic research, Pink reveals the ways that we can all optimize the timing in our lives to achieve the best possible results for whatever tasks we may have at hand. While good timing is often considered an art, Pink argues that it's actually a highly understandable science. This book is designed to help you answer some of life's most significant questions. Things like how to identify which time of day you're most productive, when your brain is operating at its peak, how to help students succeed in school, when to schedule a doctor's appointment, and how to know when the time is right to quit a job, start a new career, or even get married. Take the advice in this book to heart, and you might find yourself achieving perfect timing far more often than you thought possible. Here's what we'll talk about in this book summary. Why understanding when your personal trough occurs is essential for better results and clear thinking. Whether you are a lark, a night owl, or third bird, and why that even matters. The importance of embracing beginnings, middles, and ends throughout your life. Why when you do something matters just as much as what you actually are doing, and much, much more. But first, a couple of crucial quotes from the book. Quote, "Breaks are not a sign of sloth, but a sign of strength." Quote, "The most fulfilling jobs share a common trait. They prod us to work at our highest level, but in a way that we, not someone else, control." And the final crucial quote, "Temporal landmarks slow our thinking, allowing us to deliberate at a higher level and make better decisions." Tweetable summary to summarize this book in a nutshell. You can fill an endless number of library shelves with how-to books. But what about when-to books? Knowing when to do something is often just as important as knowing how to do it. Along every domain of our lives, from self-improvement to business to relationships and beyond, timing matters. Big idea number 1. Understanding the hidden patterns in everyday life. At the outset of the book, Pink tells us that moods are an internal state, but they have an external impact. Try as we might to conceal our emotions, they inevitably leak, and that shapes how others respond to our words and actions. For modern psychologists, social media is a treasure trove of human emotions. In the book, Pink references a study that looked at tweets from Twitter to determine how people's moods changed throughout the day. The study found surprisingly consistent trends across all countries and all demographics. In short, people tended to send their most positive, engaging, and hopeful tweets earlier on in the day, and decidedly more cranky ones in the mid-afternoon, and then happier ones again in the evening. Why is this pattern so consistent, and why does it matter? Well, scientists believe that it has a lot to do with our biological clocks. Everything from a single-celled organism on up has these internal time drivers, which are genetic timekeepers that keep our bodies functioning on a set schedule, also referred to as our circadian rhythm. For humans, this internal timekeeping takes place in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN for short, which is a cluster of cells in the brain about the size of a grain of rice, super tiny. Now, this special section controls your body temperature, your hormone levels, helps you fall asleep and wake up each day, and much more. These timers, they run about 11 minutes longer than Earth's full rotation around the sun. So it relies on environmental cues like sunlight to keep you on the right schedule. And thanks to the SCN, human emotions are relatively predictable over the course of a day. Now, the findings from the Twitter study have broad implications as they reveal that our fluctuating moods over the course of a day might have more significance in our actions than we actually think they do. Because if the time of the day can dramatically affect the tone of a tweet, it's hardly a stretch to think that it might change the effectiveness of a business meeting as well. So the evidence here is clear that our cognitive abilities don't stay static over the course of a day, and that they change in predictable ways over time. And depending on the time, we are smarter, slower, more creative, even funnier. And this timing has a dramatic impact on our overall performance at any given task. For example, mornings are often the best time to complete challenging work because the brain is fresh and it's willing to work on problems for longer. Over the course of the day, however, fatigue sets in and the mental guards go down, letting poor logic and fading energy levels become the norm instead. Likewise, creative activities often work best in the late afternoon, a time when mental barriers are lower and it's more natural to think outside the box. In other words, rational thinking is often best conducted just a few hours after waking up. But insight tasks, that is, creative work and creative ideas, those are best later on in the day. However, not everyone hits these different mood points at the same time each day. So, in our next big idea, we'll talk about how you can identify exactly when you perform at your peak. Big idea number 2. Are you a lark, night owl, or third bird? Quote, morning people tend to be pleasant, productive folks. Owls, meanwhile, display some darker tendencies. Unquote. Now, we ended the previous big idea by noting that we all have patterns of high performance and patterns of low performance throughout our daily lives. Now, the key distinction here, though, lies in recognizing your own unique periods of high performance because not everybody hits these mood points at the same time each day. Now, the general consensus is that there are 3 main types of people: larks, night owls, and third birds. Larks go to bed early and rise early in the morning, while night owls prefer to stay up late and sleep in. The majority of people fall into the category of third birds, though, which are people that fall between both of these two extremes. They're not necessarily early bird larks and they're not night owls. They're somewhere in the middle. And you can determine which one of these you are with a very, very simple test. And you can repeat this for more accurate results over a period of a week or several weekends or whenever you have that free time and you want to track your sleeping behavior and figure out which one of these you are, lark, night owl, or third bird. Now, here's how to do it. You want to think about your behavior and your sleep habits during a free day. That is, when you don't necessarily need to be up at any specific time. You fall asleep naturally, you get up naturally. And as you think about that behavior and your sleep habits, answer the following questions. What time do I normally go to sleep? What time do I normally wake up? And what's the middle of these two times? Now, you can repeat this over and over and over again over the course of several days or weekends or months or however long you see fit so that you can find that average. The key here, though, is your answer to question number 3. That is your midpoint, the time that falls exactly in the middle of when you sleep and when you wake up. Because once you've determined your midpoint, you can then take that time and see which of the following 3 time slots it falls within to determine your own chronotype. That is, whether you're a lark, third bird, or owl. You want to plug it in to one of the following 3 time slots. Okay? If your midpoint is somewhere between 12 a.m. to 3 a.m., then that means you're a lark. If your midpoint is somewhere between 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., then you're a third bird. And if your midpoint is somewhere between 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., then you're a night owl. So here's an example of how I found my own chronotype. So I normally go to sleep at 10 p.m. I normally wake up at 5 a.m., which would then give me a midpoint of 1:30 a.m. And so when I cross-reference my midpoint, which is 1:30 a.m., against the aforementioned time slots, we see that I'm a lark because my midpoint falls between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. Now, if your midpoint falls between one of the other two time slots, then that would either put you, if it's at 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., then you'd be a third bird. If it's at 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., then you'd be an owl. And of course, you can refer to the text version of this summary to help yourself figure out your own midpoint and determine whether you're a lark, third bird, or owl. And the research here, by the way, shows that 14% of people are actually larks, 65% of people are third birds, and 21% of people are owls. So which one are you? Try this exercise, determine your own chronotype. Because the time you wake up, that's going to dictate so much of your day. It dictates your cognitive abilities and how they change over the course of the day. So it's valuable to understand your own personal cycle so that you can set up your own day for maximum effectiveness. And also, another thing he touches on in the book is identifying your peak, your trough, and your rebound periods. And you can do that by figuring out and tracking your behavior, saying, okay, when am I at my peak? That is, when are you thinking with the most clarity? When are you sharpest? And then your trough, which for most people comes at around 3 p.m., that's when you get kind of tired, you get kind of slumpy, you're a little bit foggy-brained. And then towards the evening, for most people, not everyone, comes the rebound period. That's when your emotions kind of come back up and you start feeling good again. See how, and notice how this correlates with that Twitter study that we talked about in the first big idea. You see the similarities there? Morning time, people are happy, they're sending inspiring and jovial tweets, and then it kind of tapers off in the afternoon, people get into a bad mood, they start sending negative tweets, and then again towards the evening time, everybody rebounds, and the tone becomes positive again. So, if you can identify when these moods are happening for you, then you can get more productive work done each day by understanding those periods and those cycles in your own unique body composition. And to maximize your awareness in each cycle, in each stage of the cycle, you want to be aware, about where you are and work the margins of your productivity for better results. So here's a quick chart from the book to help you determine when it's best to engage in various types of tasks based on your chronotype. So once you've figured out whether you're a lark, third bird, or owl, then you want to refer to the daily when chart. And this chart is going to help you determine when it's best for you to do analytical tasks, when you're best at doing insight, creativity-related tasks, when you should make decisions, important decisions. So let's go over this really quickly. So if you're a lark, you're best off doing analytical tasks, that is, analytical work, reading, and doing high-intensity. If you're writing a report or a brief, or you need to plow through a bunch of research, things of that nature, then you're best doing that earlier on in the morning, ideally within the first few hours of rising. Insight tasks, if you're a lark, are best saved for either later on in the afternoon or earlier on in the evening. And making an important decision, that's again something you want to do if you're a lark early in the morning. That's when you're thinking with the highest level of clarity. That's when you're at your peak. Now, if you're a third bird, which is the majority of people, then analytical tasks for you are best saved for either early to mid-morning or later on in the end of the morning time period, closer to 11. If you are wanting to do insight tasks, that is creative work, then you want to save that for later on in the afternoon to earlier on in the evening. And if you're going to make an important decision and you're a third bird, save that for early to mid-morning. And finally, for night owls. If you're a night owl, analytical tasks are best saved for late in the afternoon and the evening. If you're a night owl, insight, creativity-related tasks are actually better in the morning time. And if you're going to make an important decision as a night owl, save that for later on in the afternoon and the evening time periods. And again, you can refer to the actual text-based summary at getflashbooks.com to reference this table and everything else we've talked about in this big idea and all the big ideas in this audiobook summary. So here are a few real-world examples to kind of really pound this in before we close out this big idea. Some real-world examples based on this daily when chart. Let's say you're a lark that makes a living as an attorney. You've got a brief to write, and you're better off handling that brief, your research and writing for that brief earlier on in the morning than later. Again, if you're a lark that's an attorney, a lark lawyer, and you've got a brief you need to draft, do it in the morning time. If you're an owl that works as a software engineer, move your less essential tasks to the morning time and begin your most important ones later on in the afternoon and into the evening hours. And final example, if you're bringing together a brainstorming group, schedule your meeting for the late afternoon since the majority of the team is probably going to consist of third birds. So the bottom line here is this. Once you've identified your type and task, it's a heck of a lot easier to figure out the timing. Big idea number 3. Afternoons and coffee spoons. Quote, afternoons are the Bermuda Triangles of our days. Across many domains, the trough represents the danger zone for productivity, ethics, and health. Unquote. Studies that Pink cites in the book show that the 3-hour span of time between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. is the most dangerous time to visit the hospital. Why? This is because most staff members are in the trough of their day, which means that they are operating at their lowest levels of alertness. Furthermore, during this time, doctors are more likely to prescribe unnecessary antibiotics and make mistakes during surgery. Also, doctors who perform routine colonoscopies during this 3-hour period of time also find fewer polyps, that is, small clusters of growing tissue found within the inner lining of the colon. Now, polyps are usually harmless when they're detected and handled early. But when doctors don't catch them, polyps can grow into cancerous clusters of tissue, which can obviously kill you. Now, it goes without saying that this is all pretty bad and potentially life-threatening news to hear about, but it's also worth taking a second to think about how this insight might apply to your own life. What are some silly mistakes you might be making at work between the hours of 2 p.m. and 5 p.m.? Are you realizing that you're a bit more fatigued around this time? Perhaps a little less alert than you were in the morning? It's likely that, just like the physicians and hospital employees, you're also more prone to making simple errors in judgment during this 3-hour window. So, now that you know about this problem, what's the fix? Pink's research tells us that the solution is to unleash the power of regular vigilance breaks. Brief pauses before high-stakes encounters to review instructions and guard against error. These vigilance breaks, as he likes to call them, are small time-outs, so to speak, that you can sprinkle into your daily schedule to help you make a difference in preventing errors. For instance, like those from the hospital, from occurring in your own life, in your workplace. This trend of taking breaks during the trough of your day, by the way, has wide-reaching benefits and can be applied to any area of life. For instance, in one study, Danish students who had a 20-minute break before tests achieved far better scores than those who took the test without a break. That's 20 minutes. A 20-minute break gave them better scores, far better scores than those who didn't get that 20 minutes. Now, if you want to benefit from breaks and decrease your own chances of making errors inside and outside the workplace, you'll need to incorporate vigilance breaks into your schedule in a very specific way. Understanding how vital mental and physical breaks are for achieving success throughout the day, Pink recommends following these tips for maximum effectiveness and productivity. The goal It's to break up your day by implementing these regular and intentional breaks that are designed to reset your mind. And when you do this, you can make a difference in preventing errors that may otherwise occur due to general fatigue and energy expenditure. So here's what you want to do. Take frequent, short breaks during a long task to break it up. And this is better than taking one long break. So for instance, if you are working on writing a paper that's going to take you 3 hours, so take a break every hour to kind of freshen yourself up and go for a quick walk, go fill up your water bottle, do something, just take a quick, short little break, just a little refresher. And you'll find that you're more refreshed, more vigilant when you come back and get back to work. Next, find as many opportunities as you can to work movement into your day, like we were just talking about. Stand, stretch, refill your water bottle. Next, spend time with others to get the most benefit from your break. This feeds your need for social and emotional connection, but remember, don't spend too much time. You do have work to get back to. Next, whenever possible, get outside in nature. The benefits are powerful. And finally, fully detach during these breaks by putting your phone away and taking a screen break. If you're looking at your phone or a screen of any kind during your break, it's not a break. Pink's favorite strategy, by the way, before we close out this third big idea, is to drink a cup of coffee before taking a 25-minute nap in the middle of a day. He calls this a nappuccino. And the reason this works is because caffeine actually takes about 25 minutes to get processed and kick in to your body. So you'll feel the effects just as you start to wake up. Big idea number 4, beginnings. Quote, "These are the 3 principles of successful beginnings. Start right, start again, start together." Unquote. The significance of beginnings can be seen all throughout our society. The best times to make lasting changes are New Year's, the first of every month, and every Monday. Starting on a fresh page in the calendar allows us to enhance our awareness and intention and realign ourselves towards living the goals we want to achieve in our lives, achieving those goals, living those dreams. And for this reason, constructing temporal landmarks of what you want to accomplish each day can make a massive difference for how successful you are at achieving those long-term goals that you have for yourself. How you start can make a significant difference in the effectiveness of your career, even years into the future. For example, young adults that did their job searching during the Great Recession spent years behind their peers, both financially and professionally, which led to less annual pay even a decade out. This is because a job shortage caused young workers to look harder for jobs to apply for, accept jobs that weren't ideal for their career interests, and then stay in these ill-fitting jobs for longer than they otherwise would have. In contrast, young graduates during an economic boom had their pick of job opportunities, probably even competing offers, and they had the confidence to leave otherwise good jobs in pursuit of great jobs and better opportunities. So, how can society combat the inevitable complications of a bad beginning? Recessions, of course, can't be controlled. So, they unfairly put certain people at a disadvantage. Dan Pink's idea here is that communities need to put some safety nets in place to account for these downturns and help people pick up again when the economy turns around. His ideas include student loan forgiveness programs for when the economy dips below a certain point and extra mentoring and support opportunities as well. And of course, these are all great to implement into the community, but the best thing to do is to just focus on what you can control. Whenever you have an opportunity that you have created for yourself, or whenever you can take action towards a goal that you want to achieve, put yourself into it. Put your best into it. Get started and do so with enthusiasm and persist until you've achieved that goal. Big idea number 5, midpoints. It's easy to ignore middles for the drama of the beginning and the ends, but research reveals that midpoints actually have their own significance in our daily lives. It's not uncommon for the midpoint of a project, semester, even life to cause apathy and stall progress. But other times, they can actually wake us up from a slump and motivate long-term progress. These two attitudes are identified as the slump and the spark by Daniel Pink in the book, and they can make a significant difference in the overall productivity of our lives. Now, does something like the midlife crisis really exist? Studies show that happiness actually climbs high in early adulthood, slides downward in the late 30s and 40s, and then hits its lowest point in the 50s. After that, it begins to actually climb back up again. This low 50s midpoint is often a time of change where motivation and enthusiasm for life start to flag, or an uh-oh spark triggers new productive behaviors instead. This phenomenon is especially noticeable during group projects. Researchers have noticed the trend that roughly half of the time during a group project is spent wasted with low productivity activities. Once the time is half used, the team reaches an aha moment where they kick things into high gear, usually making a significant breakthrough that improves their effectiveness for the rest of the project. This moment of transition almost always occurs near the midpoint of the project. When they're halfway there, if they've got a week to do it, then midweek, that's when they start to really kick things into high gear. And so, how can you weather a midpoint for better success? Pink offers the following tips. You want to set interim goals, meaning have goals that give you a break point halfway through. If you've got a 3-month timeline, then you want to check in at the halfway point at a month and a half. If you've got a 6-month timeline to complete a big project, then you want to check in with goals that you have, measurable interim goals at the 3-month mark or even on a quarterly basis. Just set goals that are mid-range or short-range to help you identify your progress and where you're at. Also, publicly commit to these interim goals. If you've set a goal and you tell other people about it, then you're more likely to hold yourself accountable to achieving that goal or making progress against that goal. Next, if you're writing something like a paper or an email or something that's important to you, but all of a sudden you hit a creative block of some kind or an insight block, stop your sentence midway through. This encourages your subconscious mind to actually come back later with a more creative solution. This is called the Zeigarnik effect, which basically means that, when you get a song stuck in your head and you can't stop thinking about that song, even if you don't like the song, well, that's due to the Zeigarnik effect. And most of the time, you can't get that song out of your head because it never finished. There's an open loop there. Maybe you were at Disneyland and you heard this jingle and you were just walking by one of the rides and you heard the jingle and it sounded familiar, but you didn't stay there for long enough to actually finish the jingle from beginning to end. So your mind is actually trying to close that loop, which is why you can't stop thinking about that song, because as you were walking by, it was going on and you never finished it. And so you can actually use this to your advantage rather than it being something annoying when you're working on a creative project or something important to you and you just can't get past this creative plateau. Well, stop, walk away from it, and work on something else. And oftentimes what you'll notice is that the aha moment will hit you like a light bulb, and you'll want to go back in and finish whatever it is that you were working on. So it's a really neat tip. Next, don't break the chain of progress. When you start achieving your goals, you start making progress, keep going. Don't break that chain, because once you do, you'll be less likely to pick back up and continue. But if you can keep up a chain of progress, meaning if you can continue to hit these small milestones, making those small steps daily, then you're going to not want to break that progress. And the longer you keep going, the more links you add to that chain of progress, the more likely you are to keep up the great work. And then next, picture one person your work will actually help. There are studies that show that when we actually imagine the type of person that we're helping with our work, we're more likely to put in that extra effort that we need in order to produce extraordinary work or in order to serve our customers and clients at an extraordinary level. So picture at least one person your work will help, especially when you feel demotivated. If you want to inspire yourself, think about somebody that you're making an impact on. Big idea number 6, endings. Far more 29-year-olds run marathons each year than 30-year-olds or even 28-year-olds. Why is that? Hitting the end of a decade is a significant time for a lot of people, and it triggers them to reevaluate their lives and work towards goals they have also had but never accomplished. In fact, the end of the decade is the most common time to complete a marathon with every demographic. Like beginnings and midpoints, endings add direction to what we do each day by predictably shaping us in one way or another. Endings can energize us and help us encode, edit, and elevate ourselves. However, ending a decade can also be a reliable trigger for negative behavior, like poor financial decisions, affairs, even suicide. It seems that ends signify an attempt to find meaning and purpose in life, and these can manifest themselves in very different ways depending on which direction you're going, up or down. And for this reason, setting deadlines is actually surprisingly effective by giving people a precise point where they need to commit their behavior one way or another. You can encourage them to provide the response you're looking for. And this works not just for other people. Say you're a manager or leader of some kind, community organizer, and you want to set deadlines for people that are on your team or your employees. That's very effective. And also when you set deadlines for yourself. Okay? So people also use endings to determine how much significance to give events in life. How important are things? For instance, people generally rate short lives that ended on a high note as better overall than long lives that petered out by the end. This means that the best way to create lasting positive memories is to end things on a high note. So consider planning your vacation so that the last day of the vacation is the best day, the most fantastic and fun-filled day. And every area of your life, think about how you can end on a high note. If you're giving a presentation, for instance, end with a crescendo in that presentation. Have something exciting. Think about to use a very cliched example, what Steve Jobs used to do in his presentations for Apple. He would always say, oh, and one more thing. And then he would hit you with that big, giant reveal at the end of that Apple keynote. And so think about how you can incorporate these ideas into your own life within whatever it is that you do. Whether you're talking with your family, save the most important or the most exciting news or topic of discussion for the end. If you're planning a vacation like we touched on, have the best, most fun-filled day for the end. If you're giving a presentation, end that on a high note. So every area of life, think about how you can end things on a high note. Big idea number 7, syncing, fast and slow. Quote, choirs are peculiar. A lone voice can sing a song, but combine a few voices, sometimes lots of voices, and the result transcends the sum of the parts. Unquote. In India, there is a culture of what's known as dabbawalas, or personal lunch delivery men. This revered job has actually been a fixture in Indian society for centuries, and these men form a very complex social network that delivers homemade meals to clients every single day, on the dot. In the mornings, the dabbawalas collect meals from families, and then they bring them to a central location in the city. And from there, they split them up by location and deliver them to the right people across Mumbai, a city in India. Though most of these dabbawallas are illiterate and the entire operation is actually performed without smartphones or any other technology whatsoever, they have, and this is huge, a 1 in a million error rate for missing a delivery. How is that possible? That's extraordinary. And it's possible through a phenomenon, Pink says, known as group syncing. They sync up the whole network. It's a social thing, and they are incredibly precise and accurate with their deliveries. The dabbawallas, they rely on group syncing, again, to complete their tasks and do so on time. The workers, they all have this collective responsibility to accomplish, and this bonds them together. And then, through years and years and years of practice and coordinated effort, they have even created a unique language of their own for their delivery process and a passion for success that allows them to achieve results that would otherwise be impossible. So they are masters at this game of delivery and sending these meals off and delivering them on time every time. And this same principle of group syncing holds true in competitive rowing and choir ensembles as well. In all three of these instances, the dabbawallas, the rowing, the choir ensembles, in all three of these instances, the team needs to sync their movements and their impulses with everyone else around them to achieve incredible results. They all sync up with one another. Now, this sense of belonging has significant ramifications around the world, both positive as well as negative, depending upon whether the sense of belonging is fostered or removed. Feelings of belonging can boost job satisfaction, job performance, even office gossip is vital for increasing teamwork and group productivity, Pink tells us, and the reason why is because it helps people connect. Even better, group syncing is connected with boosts in mood, higher self-esteem, lower stress levels. Working with others, it really does make us happier, healthier individuals. So, do you need some ideas to add social activity and group syncing into your own life? Pink recommends the following. You could sing in a chorus. You could run with other people, either on your team at work or with your family. You could row crew. You could join a dance team or dance for exercise. You could join a yoga class. You could do some flash mob dances. You could cook in tandem with other people. You could swim. You could hike. You could do group activities together. It's about building a bond with other people in your life or meeting other people and building a bond with them. Big idea number 8. Thinking in tenses. Quote, "We too are way beyond tenses. The challenge of the human condition is to bring the past, present, and future together." Unquote. The ways we think about the future dictate how we behave. For instance, many languages, like Mandarin, have little ways to differentiate between the present and the future. It's not encoded in their language. The cultures that speak them tend to take their preventative health concerns more seriously and even save more money for retirement because they don't have this difference in tenses between the past, the present, or the future. It's unclear now what the cause and effect relationship is here, but the evidence shows in the book that framing things in tenses has real-world implications for what you do with that information. Similarly, everyone knows that their sense of time feels altered during significant events. 3 seconds of your hand on a hot stove, for instance, is an eternity compared to an hour watching your favorite TV show. One feels like forever, the other flies by. Likewise, activities that add poignancy and awe to life can have profoundly positive effects, even if they are remembered from the past. So, to enhance your own feelings of awe in regular life, take time to pull yourself out of your head and back into the present moment. You'll create stronger, longer-lasting memories that way. Closing notes. The key takeaway from this book is this. While society is forever focused on what you do, when you do it is equally important. Time matters in tasks, from the time of day of your peak productivity and creative abilities to the stage in life where you can best accomplish your goals. And by understanding the ways that timing impacts what you do and how well you do it, you can optimize your own life to get the best possible results. Some actionable insights? First, remember to pay attention to the brain power required of you to complete a task and plan it into your day accordingly, based on your chronotype or when you operate at your peak. Next, dictate your daily schedule depending upon whether you're a lark, night owl, or third bird. And remember, you can do that exercise that we talked about earlier on in this audiobook summary. Refer to the daily when chart and do that exercise where you find the midpoint in your sleep schedule and then identify whether you're a lark, night owl, or third bird, and then go from there. Next, make a change for the better in the final year of a decade, because you're more likely to either go in a very negative direction in the final year of a decade or to go in a very positive direction. Of course, make it a positive one. Next, understand the motivating power of midpoints, and don't let them drag you down. And finally, find ways to accommodate slow starts so that the delay doesn't last a lifetime.